Okay, but if you want to stream on your YouTube channel, I mean, on your TikTok, I think it's better to set it up there.
But the phone that doesn't do regular.
No, I get away with it, you just have to. As long as it's on the side of the field. Yeah.
Okay, I need to open the video. Ibugar. When we start, you must start the clock. Kenny?
Charging. Why are they?
𝐾𝐶𝐞𝐦.
All the waves and
My name is Sunny and welcome to our public lecture. It's now 6:30. We should be starting in the next 5 minutes. We're just waiting for everyone to come through. And then in the next 5 minutes, we will start. Thank you so much.
Where's this music coming from?
They are
By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down and wept, while the memory of Zion in our broken hearts we kept. We hanged our harps upon the willows, in the midst there broke, losing all the melody in the language of our love. For there they that carried us away, captive required a song, and they that wasted us required mirth when things were wrong. Sing us one of the songs of Zion, was the captor's cold command. But how shall we sing the Lord's song in a strange and weary land? If I forget thee, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget her skin. Let my tongue cleave to my mouth. If I lose the holy, beyond the rivers and the weeping, beyond the iron chains,
public lecture. We are going to be starting now. If you could just give an indication whether you are able to hear me, either through a thumbs up or through a chat, are you able to hear me so that we can proceed with our public lecture today? Thank you so much for that confirmation. Thank you so much, colleagues. I will continue with today's public lecture, and I will refer to all of these, no disrespect to any of us who wants to be referred to in a different manner. Welcome to the public lecture that is hosted by the University of Venda Convocation. Under the topic, does municipal governance authorities violate participation, analyze the impact of local governance and electoral engagements. And our program is quite short and straight to the point. My name is Shudisani Masuka, and I'll be your program director for today. Later on, we have the president of the convocation, Mr. Mr. coming through to give a presentation, and of course he'll also introduce our guest speaker for today. Then we'll go as far as taking questions and having answers. There's a question and answer session. Later on, we will also be headed by Prof. Harry James. Later on, we have a vote of thanks by Dr. 𝐾𝐿𝐽𝐬𝐫𝐚𝐜𝐲, and then we'll have our chairperson of council, which is Mr. 𝐃𝐽𝐬𝐲. Now let's proceed in that fashion, colleagues. This evening, and given what South Africa, well, given the wars that are seen within the country at this moment, I think South Africa is gearing up, and it's standing up as a world player in the different responses that it has given. But today, it's not necessarily about that. It is about whether the municipal governance has any effect on the electoral elections, which we are looking forward to as South Africa. And of course, I'm not here to give any basis or give any background on it, because that's what our guest speaker will do, and that's what you are here for, to deliberate, to question, and to engage critically so on today's topic. Ladies and gentlemen, please, if there's anyone who by any chance would have any questions in between as the guest speaker is still busy, please just note those down on a paper or something on your end. As and when the question and answer sessions come through, that's when you'll be noted and given the floor to ask your questions, and then give the deliberations as indicated. Please do give a virtual applause as we welcome the president of the convocation of the University of Venda, Mr. Sylvester, who will be coming through to give a brief presentation to this public lecture. President?
SST, I see the hand of Mr. 𝐾𝐿𝐽𝐬𝐫𝐚𝐜𝐲. Please check with him.
Thank you so much, President. Mr. 𝐾𝐿𝐽𝐬𝐫𝐚𝐜𝐲.
No, it's a mistake. It's a legacy end.
All right, thank you so much. President Massa, please come through.
Thank you very much, our program director, SST. 𝐾𝐲. It restores dignity, builds trust, and inspires citizens to participate in democratic processes. Conversely, when governance falters or fails, it risks deepening apathy, disengagement, and declining voter turnout. As someone engaged in governance both within the university space and in broader public space, I must emphasize, colleagues, that this conversation is also about ethical leadership, institutional capacity, and accountability systems. We must ask ourselves, are our governance systems responsive and people-centered? Do our institutions inspire confidence through transparency or performance? And importantly, how do we rebuild trust where it has been lost? This lecture, colleagues, is therefore timely and necessary. It challenges us to reflect not only as academics or practitioners, but also as active citizens. Convocation, therefore, in its role, remains committed to advancing critical dialogue on issues that shape our society. We believe that universities must serve as platforms for thought leadership, policy engagement, and social transformation. We are therefore honored, ladies and gentlemen, to host a speaker of the caliber of Mr. Brutus Malada, whose work sits at the intersection of governance, policy, and democratic participation. A tribalizer of note, a tantalizer, and we are really honored to introduce him to all of you. Mr. Brutus Malada, your people are here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. May the speaker proceed, please. May our guest speaker proceed, please.
Good evening. In the intricate architecture of any democratic polity, local government is the most immediate, visceral, and consequential expression of the social contract. It is not in the lofty chambers of parliament, nor in the corridors of union buildings that citizens first encounter the state. It is at the coalface of daily life, at the municipal water tap that runs dry, the refuse pile that festers uncollected, the pothole that swallows a taxi, or the street light that remains dark for months. Here, the constitutional promise of redress, reconstruction, and development collides with the hard realities of lived experience. Jean-Jacques Rousseau, in his seminal work, The Social Contract, captured this dynamic with enduring elegance. He says, I quote, "The legislative power is the heart of the state, and the executive is the brain, which sets all the parts in motion. The brain may become paralyzed, but the individual still lives. A man can be an imbecile and survive, but as soon as his heart stops functioning, the creature is dead." Close quote. In South Africa's post-apartheid constitutional design, Chapter 3, Section 40, government is constituted as national, provincial, and local spheres, which are distinctive, interdependent, and interrelated. The problems and challenges facing South Africa today are symptomatic of a man suffering a double jeopardy, grappling with a brain tumor and severe heart palpitations. The executive of the state has, over the years, been unstable, while the legislature has failed continuously to demand accountability, let alone to use its constitutional power to legislate for the greater good of our body politic. Instead, we created a parliament of parrots, mimicking the voice of the political headquarters instead of embracing their full constitutional responsibility as the heart of the state. If we take the metaphor further to the municipal level, I would like to suggest that the municipality functions as both the heart and the frontline brain of the body politic. It is the sphere where the grand ideals of the 1996 Constitution must be translated into tangible services: clean water, reliable electricity, function. From the past filled with despair, the advent of democracy ushered a breeze of hope. However, the transition proved, with the passage of time, a growing chasm between constitutional objectives and actual practice. The line between the state and party got blurred. Internal squabbles in the ruling party intensified, and this created great instability in the state. The post-1994 political order emerged from a hard-won equilibrium among contending forces, that is, the colonial legacies, apartheid oppression, and the liberation struggle. To understand why that equilibrium has proven so fragile at local level, we must turn to Francis Fukuyama's theory of political decay, which provides a powerful analytical lens for our situation. In his landmark works on political order and political decay, Fukuyama argues that political order is not static achievement, but a dynamic equilibrium among three core pillars. First, a capable state, which means effective bureaucracy. Two, the rule of law, which means impartial institutions that constrain power. Three, accountability, that relates to mechanisms that ensure rulers respond to citizens. This equilibrium arises when contending social forces such as class, ethnic group, or political factions reach a temporary balance that allows institutions to function. However, Fukuyama warns that decay is an inherent risk. As time passes, internal and external changes erode the original equilibrium. Founding actors evolve or disappear. New elites emerge with different incentives, economic and social conditions shift, and institutions themselves become repurposed for private gain rather than public purpose. Patronage networks, clientelism, and elite capture replace merit-based selection. What began as a vibrant democracy soon started to slide into vetocracy, a system where veto players block reforms, or outright decay, where the state loses capacity and legitimacy. Fukuyama illustrates with these historical cases from ancient China to modern democracies, showing how even successful orders decay when accountability mechanisms weaken and the state is hijacked by narrow interests. In post-apartheid South Africa, this theory resonates with uncanny precision. The inclusive negotiations of the early 1990s forged an initial equilibrium, sustained in the first decade by Nelson Mandela's charismatic authority and the Reconstruction and Development Program, the RDP. The charisma and revolutionary zeal of the leadership of the first decade created a facade of stability, reminiscent of what Francis Fukuyama observed in his magna opus, The End of History and the Last Man, where he says, revolutionary regimes may govern effectively in their early years by virtue of charismatic authority. But once the regime founders have passed on, there is no guarantee that their successors will enjoy a comparable degree of authority, or even that they will minimally be competent at running the country. Self-destructive power struggles develop among followers of those who founded the regime, who succeed in checking one another, but not in governing the country effectively. Close quote. The charismatic authority of the leadership of former President Nelson Mandela inspired a sense of hope among many South Africans. The new RDP was embraced by the generality of the populace. Mandela's moral authority was felt within and without the ruling party, and his commitment to accountability breathed vitality into the country's first democratic parliament. Thus, political order in the party was transmitted into structures of government. Mandela even called for the RDP of the soul to engender humane values in our society. But the RDP of the soul seems to have exited with Mandela from politics. His successors have been embroiled in bitter factional battles. The battles have spilled in to infect the state. They have watered the soil for the growth of corruption, conspicuous consumption, crass materialism, and rotten politics. These ills have almost become synonymous with government, and they are responsible for the spread of negative perceptions about public sector in general. The euphoria of the new political dispensation created the illusion of a perfect new world. Expectations of change blunted society's collective imagination and made it appear unreasonable to suspect the prospects of cronyism or political connectedness as the basis for appointing people into senior positions in the state. Soon, cronyism and nepotism became rife, and it manifested into its most dangerous form, that is the cult of mediocrity. In his essay on the trouble with Nigeria, Chinua Achebe laments the impact of mediocrity on the capacity of the state to deliver public services in Nigeria. And this is what he says, I quote, "But whereas tribalism might win enough votes to install a reactionary jingoist in a tribal ghetto, the cult of mediocrity will bring the wheels of modernization grinding to a halt throughout the land. Look at our collapsing public utilities, our inefficient and wasteful parastatals, and state-owned companies. If you want electricity, you buy your own generator. If you want water, you sink your own borehole. If you want to travel, you set up your own airline. One day soon, you will have to build your own post office to send your letters." The experience of the past decade, especially the Zuma years, proved that South Africa is not any way better than Chinua Achebe's Nigeria. Load shedding, water rationing, collapsing bridges, and a plethora of SOEs that have collapsed have dominated news headlines. We have the Zondo Commission, the Madlanga Commission, with documented evidence to prove it. New phenomena such as water tank mafias, the construction mafia, etc., are examples of the rotten politics and the impunity of the tenderpreneurs. But Frantz Fanon had already warned us in the early 1960s, and we didn't listen. This is what he said. Inside the new regime, however, there are varying degrees of enrichment and acquisitiveness. Some are able to cash in on all sides and prove to be brilliant opportunists. Favors abound, corruption triumphs, and morals decline. Today, the vultures are too numerous and too greedy, considering the eagerness of national spoils. For a country saddled with daunting socio-economic challenges, such as South Africa, the actions of brilliant opportunists divert national attention from the real task. The brilliant opportunists are so brilliant that they are even capable of hijacking the ruling party and divert it away from its strategic task of improving the lives of ordinary people. The opportunists use their ill-gotten wealth to purchase political support for their preferred candidates whenever there are elections in the party. It gets to the dangerous stage where those without money can never hope to win an election, no matter how genuine their intentions are. This is when democracy becomes perverted, when electoral contests become money battles. Elections thus lose their reliability as a barometer of the genuine will of the electorate. When all this occurs, the political arena ceases to be a place where ideas are ventilated. Those who attempt to elevate debates drown in the noise mobs hired to lampoon political opponents. The environment becomes so confusing that a genuine substantive alternative fails to reveal its distinguishing characteristics. Cynicism and disgruntlement among ordinary people deepen, and politicians are viewed with suspicion. At the municipal level, these pathologies manifest most acutely: financial mismanagement, service delivery collapse, and institutional decay. Fukuyama's framework, therefore, helps us to see that South Africa's local governance crisis is not mere incompetence, but a classic case of political decay, the repurposing of the state institutions for factional and personal gain, the erosion of accountability, and the consequent loss of citizen trust. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we gather not merely to dissect data or recite statistics, but to confront a profound question at the heart of our young democracy. Does municipal governance performance inspire voter participation? This question we must confront with intellectual honesty. We must be brutally honest and approach it with a sense of civic agency. Does the performance of our municipalities inspire voter participation, or whether they accelerate political decay, breeding cynicism, apathy, and democratic disengagement? This is neither a rhetorical question nor is it an abstract academic exercise. It is an existential inquiry into the health of our constitutional democracy. What then is my core thesis? This lecture advances a clear, evidence-based, and urgent core thesis that municipal governance performance does not inspire voter participation. On the contrary, persistent audit failures, financial mismanagement, service delivery collapse, and the broader socioeconomic malaise, they erode public trust, they deepen disillusionment, and drive declining electoral engagement. Three interlocking arguments sustain this thesis, each woven with theoretical depth and empirical rigor. 1. Auditor General reports reveal a systemic crisis of accountability and competence, where there is critically low clean audit rates, billions in irregular, fruitless, and unauthorized expenditure, and chronic non-compliance that citizens experience not as distant accounting failures, but as daily assaults on dignity and the quality of life. 2, data from the Human Science Research Council voter participation surveys and the Independent Electoral Commission results, protest monitors, and unemployment statistics demonstrate statistically significant correlations that there is dissatisfaction with local service delivery, which is a primary driver of voter apathy and non-registration and absenteeism, particularly in local government elections. Fukuyama's theory, which is the third theory of political decay, together with insights from Achebe's cult of mediocrity and Fanon's opportunists, as well as Rousseau's heart and brain metaphor, explains the deeper causal mechanism. Rotten local politics does not merely disappoint citizens. It delegitimizes the entire democratic project, turning the ballot from a site of empowerment into one of quiet withdrawal. In essence, when municipalities fail their constitutional mandate, they do not mobilize the electorate. They alienate it, transforming potential democratic vitality into widespread disillusionment. What does the data say? Let us now turn to the empirical record with the care and depth it deserves. The data are not cold abstractions. They narrate a story of democratic promise unmet, of a dream deferred, of Fukuyama's equilibrium that is lost, of citizens voting with their feet by staying away from the polls. Let's start with the Auditor General. The Auditor General of South Africa, in her consolidated general reports for recent years, offer a damning diagnosis of systemic failures. In the 2023-2024 financial year, only 41 out of 257 municipalities, that is just 16%, achieved clean audits. That is unqualified opinions with no material findings. This is a marginal improvement from 34 municipalities that was 13% in the year 2022-2023. Yet the overall trajectory remains bleak. Between 2021 and 2024 alone, municipalities incurred 87.3 billion in irregular expenditures, 17.65 billion in fruitless and wasteful expenditure, 81.59 billion in unauthorized expenditure. Root causes are structural and persistent. 53% of municipalities failed to investigate irregular spending, signaling a complete absence of consequence management. Critical posts remain vacant. Municipalities over-rely on expensive consultants, and supply chain non-compliance affects 83% of them. These figures are not sterile bookkeeping. As Chinua Achebe warned, when mediocrity triumphs, the wheels of modernization grind to a halt. Citizens live this reality. Water losses average 37%, far above acceptable norms. Electricity losses at 18% above norms. Wastewater treatment works continue to pollute our rivers, and infrastructure projects suffer delays due to things like the new phenomenon of the construction mafias. There are cost overruns, and some of these projects are substandard. The Auditor General has stated plainly that lack of accountability and poor financial management impede service delivery. Specific examples abound. In the Northwest Province, municipalities such as Madibeng Local Municipality and Ngakamudirimulema have languished under Section 139 administration since 2009, more than a decade in some cases, illustrating how interventions blur into permanence rather than building lasting capacity. National interventions under Section 100 in provinces like Limpopo, the Free State, Gauteng, and the Eastern Cape in 2011, and repeated in later years, further highlight the depth of collapse, yet rarely lead to leadership accountability. This is what Fukuyama calls decay in action. Institutions that are repurposed for patronage, accountability mechanisms hollowed out. Let's now turn our attention to voter participation. In the graphs that I have prepared, which should be flighted on the screens, we see that these graphs reveal a troubling divergence. Significant population figures of eligible voters do not 2000, only 18 million registered. And of those 18 million who registered, only 8 million voted. The 2021 figures are staggering. 42.6 million eligible voters, yet only 26.2 million were registered. And of those who were registered, only 12 million voted. Registered voters have grown steadily. If you look at these figures, from 18.5 million in 2000 to 26.2 million in 2021, reflecting population growth and democratic consolidation. Yet, our voter turnout, after modest peaks of 57.6% in 2011 and 57.9 in 2016, collapsed to a historic low of 45.86% in 2020. Dramatically after 2009 and have remained stubbornly high, often exceeding 100 to almost 200 annually, from 34 protests nationally in 2000 to 194 protests in 2021, and majority of which 10 violent. This is no coincidence. As Fukuyama explains, when internal disequilibrium sets in, political decay follows. Citizens protest because formal channels of participation feel futile. The 2011-2012 surge, for instance, coincided with widespread municipal crisis and the very intervention cited earlier, while the 2021-2022 persistence, despite the pandemic, reflects ongoing failures in water, sanitation, electricity provision in provinces like KZN and the Eastern Cape. Meanwhile, there is a clear correlation between failures of governance and voter turnout. Very few municipalities have their books in order. The number of municipalities with clean audit remain around 15%, that is 40, if not 41, out of 157 municipalities. The correlation is unmistakable. Chronically low clean audit rates coincide with and logically contribute to declining turnout. What do the voter perception survey tell us? The HSRC voter participation surveys add the human dimension that democratic satisfaction has plummeted to just 17%, down from 69% confidence in 2004. Over 70% of citizens now believe their vote does not make a difference. Nearly 50% of eligible voters remain unregistered for 2026 local government elections. And service delivery dissatisfaction is a statistically significant predictor of abstentions, especially among women and the youth. Turnout fell in 201 of the 205 municipalities in 2021, precisely those with the worst audit outcomes. In municipalities plagued by repeated disclaimers, such as certain municipalities in the Eastern Cape and Limpopo councils, voter apathy was particularly pronounced. These trends embody Fukuyama's decay. The original post-1994 equilibrium has shifted. Fanon's opportunists have hijacked resources, and Achebe's mediocrity has taken root. Citizens confronted with a local state that has withdrawn from its duties respond by withdrawing from the democratic process. The ballot box becomes not a tool for inspiration, but a mirror of betrayal. How do we compare with the rest of the world? Voter turnout in local elections is generally lower than national across democracies, reflecting second-order status. Countries that form part of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, that is the OECD, show a wide variation, where compulsory voting nations such as Australia and Belgium often exceed 80 to 90% in national polls, while voluntary systems range between 50 and 70%. Local turnout is typically 10 to 20 points lower as compared to national elections. For example, many European municipal elections hover only at about 40 to 60%. In the US, local municipal turnout frequently dips between 30 and 40% in off-cycle races. Therefore, South Africa's 2021 local figure of 45.86%, down from 58, is low but not unprecedented globally. However, the sharp decline alongside record registered voters and persistent high protests sets South Africa apart. In developing or middle-income democracies, for example, Brazil and Mexico, local turnout varies but often benefits from compulsory voting elements or strong party machines. Protests occur over services but rarely reach South Africa's scale or violence frequency. In India, municipal elections see highly variable turnout, often between 50 and 70% in some of the states. These are driven by patronage and identity politics. Corruption and service failures exist, but decentralization reforms and competitive local politics sometimes sustain engagement better than in South Africa. Nigeria is another example, where local governance suffers severe patronage and capacity issues. And Nigeria is particularly cited in Fukuyama's book as a prime example of decay, where the turnout can be manipulated or can be very low, with service failures that are widespread. But South Africa's stronger formal institutions and audit regime makes its persistent 13 to 16% audit rate particularly damning. Service delivery protests are not unique. They are all seen in parts of Latin America, India, and even in some OECD contexts during austerity. But South Africa's frequency and leakage to local governance collapse appear more intense, often tied to ANC internal factionalism and blurred party state lines. In contrast, many OECD municipalities maintain higher baseline performance through stronger professional bureaucracies and accountability that mitigate against decay. While some democracies see economic discontent boosting populist participation, South Africa's patterns show alienation. Citizens disengage because the local heart has stopped functioning effectively. This validates what Fukuyama said. Internal shifts, that is party instability, new actors pursuing tenders, have destabilized the post-1994 equilibrium, producing decay more visibly at municipal level than in many peer nations with stronger rule of law safeguards or competitive local politics. The data that I've shown thus confirm the thesis that poor performance erodes participation. Comparative evidence show the challenge is widespread, but South Africa's depth, low clean audits, sustained protests, turnout collapse reflects accelerated decay rooted in patronage and mediocrity. What could be the source of municipal dysfunction? There could be many. One could be education. Does the level of education matter in politics? The crisis of municipal governance is not only financial and administrative. It is profoundly human and intellectual. A growing body of literature establishes education as a powerful proxy for merit, competence, and effective oversight, qualities essential for councillors to fulfill their constitutional duties. You will recall Plato's vision of the philosopher king and the rule of learnedness, which we call sophocracy, which rested on the conviction that the wise must lead because they possess the wisdom and technical know-how to steer the state. Centuries later, we find Thomas Jefferson, who argued that those persons whom nature has endowed with genius and virtue should be rendered by liberal education worthy to receive and able to guard the sacred deposit of the rights and liberties of their fellow citizens. Again, Walter Lippmann similarly insisted that governance should be entrusted to a specialized class of men who have the time, resources, and the interests, essentially referring to educated elite. Modern empirical studies reinforce this ancient insight. We have Beasley et al. From the London School of Economics, who analyzed over 1,000 political leaders across the world over more than a century, and found that replacing an educated leader with a less educated one leads to economic regression. We have seen this with the replacement of a leader who, during his time, had 3 to 4% growth, economic growth, replaced by a leader who had not gone to school. And we saw ourselves finishing all the reserves and going basket in hand to the IMF. Now, we have lived this experience. The Norwegians have done a study looking at the local government, and they found that better educated politicians induce higher levels of efficiency. Thus, education equips leaders with analytical rigor, the ability to process voluminous information, rhetorical competence, and the political self-confidence necessary for holding executives accountable. In South Africa, the reality at municipal level is starkly different. A 2023 skills audit conducted by the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, 𝐾OGTA, revealed that in KZN alone, 298 out of 1,944 councillors could neither read nor write. And Fourie and van der Walt in 2023 observed that these councillors were ill-prepared to conduct their oversight responsibilities, despite the existence of statutory prescripts and oversight structures. Now, how, one must ask, can a councillor effectively scrutinize budgets, interrogate reports, or hold the executive to account if they cannot read the very documents placed before them? The audit data suggests a direct correlation between municipal dysfunctionality and councillor illiteracy, a classic manifestation of the cult of mediocrity that Achebe warned against. This is not an elitist argument, but a pragmatic one rooted in meritocracy. As Karl Popper noted, when a citizen distinguishes himself through merit, he should be called to serve, not as a privilege, but as a reward. The antonym of meritocracy is mediocrity, and mediocrity in municipal councils translates directly into the governance failures documented by the Auditor General. While some scholars such as Canis and Lupu in 2016 cautioned us against a blunt, more schooling is always better assumption, and call for research focused on field-specific education such as political science and public policy, they nevertheless acknowledge that education can enhance performance. In South Africa's municipalities, where complex oversight, financial scrutiny, and service delivery planning are daily requirements, the absence of adequate education among many councillors exacerbates political decay. Institutions are repurposed not for public good, but for factional survival, and the heart of the state beats ever more faintly. Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence we have presented converges on one inescapable conclusion. Municipal governance performance actively undermines voter participation. Auditor General data document systemic crisis. HSRC surveys and election statistics reveal the human toll of historic lows in trust and engagement, while service delivery protests and unemployment compound the alienation. Fukuyama's theory illustrates that the causal chain, internal party rot fractures the constitutional equilibrium, producing political decay and citizens' experience at local government. The result is not merely declining turnout, but deeper democratic decay. The heart of the state, our municipalities, is failing, and citizens are responding rationally by disengaging. Without deliberate restoration of order, this spiral threatens the legitimacy of the entire post-apartheid order. Now, we need to ask the Lenin question: what is to be done? A call to action for active citizenship. Fellow South Africans, the time for passive observation is over. As Roberto Mangabeira Unga, the former Minister of Ideas in Brazil, reminds us in his book, What Should the Left Propose? He says, a crisis raises the temperature of politics and helps melt down frozen definitions of interests and identity. Without crisis, politics becomes cold, and calculation in the form of reliance on conventional understanding of interest and ideas reigns supreme, close quote. But crisis can only be a midwife of change, provided the citizens act with courage and clarity. Active citizenship demands three urgent, practical, and collective steps. 1, we need to demand accountability at the coalface. That is, attend council meetings, scrutinize budgets, and insist on consequence management for every rand of irregular expenditure. 2, we need to reclaim the vote as an instrument of redress. This means we must register, participate, and support candidates and parties committed to professionalizing the public service, ending the cult of mediocrity, and ensuring that those who seek municipal office possess the educational competence and skills required for effective oversight and governance. 3, we need to forge coalitions beyond party lines. This means civil society, the academia, faith communities, youth movements, and community forums must build new equilibria through fresh rules and institutions that prize competence over connection. In his book, The Audacity of Hope, former US President Barack Obama urged us to close the gap between the magnitude of our challenges and the smallness of our politics. Let this evening mark the beginning of that closure. But let me remind you of the counsel that former President of the United States, John Adams, gave in a letter to his son. And this is a challenge I want to pose to everyone who is attending this lecture by reading an excerpt from the letter of President John Adams. I quote, "Public business, my son, must always be done by somebody. It will be done by somebody or other. If wise men decline it, others will not. If honest men refuse it, others will not." Ladies and gentlemen, the collapse of municipal governance need not be our destiny. Through vigilant, informed, and participatory citizenship, we can restore the heart of the state, and with it, the soul of our democracy. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our guest speaker. Can we just give him a virtual applause, please, or a thumbs up wherever you are, please, people. We have been indeed enlightened, and this is time for us to go off to our questions and answer session. May I call through Professor Harry Munjeti to come and take us through the Q&A question, please. This will go through a raise of hands. Professor Harry Munjeti, please come through.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity, Shon-san. We have all heard what our guest speaker has said, which indeed provoked a lot of discussions, I hope, that are going to ensue. I see also a lot of hands, and you can also write, colleagues, your questions on the charts, so that if you don't get an opportunity to speak You may write your questions there. We'll also be able to go and get your questions from there. But indeed, the discussion involved a lot of things that we, on a day-to-day basis, these are the things that we talk about, we hear on our local radio stations, podcasts, and televisions to say, is there a relationship between the two, municipal governance, performance versus voter participation? Because there are many multiplicity of factors that contribute to this, as our speaker alluded to. But also just to add that the issue of ability, the issue of accountability or lack of it thereof, it plays a role. And so let me start with Naromondo Ropiwa. You may start, followed by Tibile Markat in that order. Please, you may come with your question, Naromondo. You may unmute and give us your brief question. I hope Mr. Malada is ready with the pen so that he can be able to note down the questions. Ropiwa?
No. Good evening, colleagues, and thanks for this wonderful presentation. I think it's one of the eye-opener, especially when you try to link the service delivery towards the voters. I just want to, maybe my question will be based on the statistics that the presenter flagged, especially on the issues of clean audit. To say, yes, the AG have indicated that there is around 15% of the municipalities which managed to get the clean audit. But my question will be, those clean audits, are they linked with service delivery? Because we can able to manage to do our books correctly, but when you go to look at the output in terms of the service delivery, you find that the truth doesn't talk. So I just want to check with the presenter to say, in terms of his research, did this go as far as that to say, yes, the AG says these municipalities are getting the clean audit, but what about the output? Because my worries, it's more into the output, because the books can be look clean, but the output cannot be clean. I think I'll pause there because the space where I work directly with the municipality. I see those things in a daily basis. Thanks.
Prof, please note that you are muted. If you could please unmute, please.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was saying thank you very much, Ropiwa, for the question. Can we go to Tibilani for the second question? May you also try to be brief as well?
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair, for the opportunity. Congratulations, Brutus. That was quite hard hitting. Hard hitting as it was. You allowed me also to hard hit on some of the issues that you raised, but maybe I'll talk about that when I close. In preparation of this interaction, I was quite stunned to read that as much as there's a drop in voter participation in Limpopo, particularly, there's this surprise that probably Brutus is aware of. Collins Chavani, Upane Municipality, together with two Northern Cape municipalities, 𝐾𝐞𝐦𝐵 and Rextersveld, they sort of registered an increase in terms of voter participation. And when you check, internationally, there's a general decline in voter participation. The same way that a little bit, few years back, we were sort of a bit apprehensive as to whether we'll be engaged into government of national unities, coalition and all that. And that is the recurring trend internationally. So we shouldn't really be too much hard on ourselves to say that, oh, well, we want to see the 1994 first election, second elections, voter turnout. Those days are gone. The thing that probably will need to happen will have to be maybe the reconfiguring of the three tiers of government, which brings me to my second at last point, to say that debate of do we really need the provincial structure of government in between local government and national government? That question has to come to the fore again, because sometimes it might be seen that one of the two has to give way. It will reduce bureaucracy, and it will also ensure that there will be more direct interaction with, even if it means that you collapse local government and let the provincial government oversee what is happening at local government. Last but not the least, in which I hope that after this, there will be no love lost. I lost count how many times the presenter quoted Francis Fukuyama. Francis Fukuyama is a known neo-conservative who later on abandoned that and became a leader, that is liberal democracy. Liberal democracy politics in South Africa at the moment, we know where they reside. And they do not really cater for what the majority of the people or the population or the voters will wish to see South Africa going towards to. So now we really need to sometimes, whenever we do, because for me this was just a liberal democracy angle to everything, which sort of delegitimizes the fact that the people have got a bigger voice. So that is why we start getting tempted to talk about that there are some people who have got a monopoly on knowledge just because they've gone through, the halls of residence, the halls of education, and all that. So I think we need to be realistic about what obtains in Africa. I'm not saying that people who do not have the depth should be given the keys to the city or to the highest office of the land. But what we need to do, we must be real to what we have. And I'm quoting the American presidents, 3 of them, not even a single African president.
You may wrap up today.
I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Marakasokola?
Thank you, Prof. Am I audible? Are you able to hear me from that side?
Yes, I can hear you clearly, Doctor.
No, thank you very much. I have prepared 5 questions, but 3 have been taken by the other speakers. So, but let me, what a very inspiring presentation for some of us who are in the field of local government. I think we need to applaud the presenter here. Sorry, Prof.
No, it's too late. Please mute your mic. You may continue, Doctor.
Okay, no, thanks, Prof. And let me start by re-quoting what the speaker actually said when he was quoting Vladimir Lenin. It actually impressed me because Lenin puts a question, what is to be done? But Lenin goes further to answer this question by saying that perhaps we need to engage in, in an exercise of theorization, so that through this theorization we can arrive at a revolutionary action. And perhaps this platform, the organizers of this platform has also been applauded for this arrangement, so that we're able to express our contribution. But let me start with the presentation itself. I want to understand, Mr. Brutus, you were trying to draw correlations between the voter apathy and local government or governance performance, municipal governance performance. And I want to take from the previous speaker, the observation from the previous speaker, advocate, to say, when you look at Limpopo and Northwest, majority of the municipalities, are recording high levels of voters in each and every, election period. Yet you get a sense that even if you look at the Limpopo development plan, for example, it tells you that the 60% of the population in the province are still living below the poverty line, but they can still go out and vote. Don't you think that this correlation is a little bit obscured? There are obscurities in this correlation, which perhaps need further research interrogation. That is the first question. But the second question would be, you correctly characterized our contemporary local government in terms of the challenges. We have the perpetual consultocratic managerialism, we have the patronage system, which is really embedded into our municipal governance system. You also have corruption and all those problems. But if you look at the precursor to those problems, you agree with me when I say that the precursor to those is the tainted political administrative interface. And if you agree with me on that element, I want to hear your comments on the unintended constitutional crisis of prioritizing the political rights over municipal governance. I'm talking here about the recent Constitutional Court judgment which nullified the amendments that President Ramaphosa signed into law in a bid to prevent political interference into the administration of municipalities. And the Constitutional Court says, no, we've got to balance the human rights. People must have the right to political association, because the president was simply saying that you cannot hold political office when you are a senior manager in the local government. That I feel like it creates some sort of unintended constitutional crisis which will then hurt the municipal governance. What is your view on that? Maybe I should stop there, Professor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sopola. Mr. Ansani Matemsa.
Thank you very much, Represent. I'm not going to acknowledge or appreciate the organizers of this event because they've already been appreciated by the previous speaker. I'm also not going to appreciate or acknowledge the presentation which have been made because it was also acknowledged by the previous speaker. But I only have one simple question, which I'm also not going to make a very long statement. The speaker or the presenter have been criticizing the government of the day from the first minute up until the last minute with facts. The lack of electricity, lack of water, incompetence of councillors, buying of conferences, elections in the ruling government or in the ANC and so on and so forth. So my question is one, is there nothing at all, just even one good thing that the government of the day has done which worth mentioning? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Andisani. TWB. TWB. You are muted, TWB. We can hear you.
Can you hear me, Prof? Hello? Hello? Can you hear me now?
TWB.
Good evening. Can you hear me, Prof?
Proceed, TWB, you can hear you clearly.
Yeah, well, let me start by appreciating a very frank presentation by Brutus Malada, and I think he has been spot on. And I want to echo what he was saying as the former municipal manager myself, having served in local government for almost 7 years. It must, however, be noted that those who still have, who still need to serve in local government, they must be, readily prepared to, deal with a lot of resistance, because a number of public representatives who are now serving in a variety of municipal councils are not there to serve the interests of our people. The question that Brutus spoke of is whether the audit outcomes speak directly to service delivery on the ground. The answer is definitely no. You still find municipalities that are able to get qualified audit opinions, for example. But when you go to the communities, they don't no service delivery. Our people are still suffering. I don't want to buy in that story that Brutus is brutal against the ruling elites currently. He's just opening our eyes that until such time we actively engage in this discourse, frankly, that you cannot have people who do not have, educational know-how be expected to interpret more than 200 of legislation that affect local government. There are a number of, acts and regulations that govern local government. And I can tell you without any doubt that not many of these public representatives understand what is required of them. Look at Machabe, for example. Look at Madibe. Look at 𝐾𝐿𝐷𝐿. It is a hopeless situation that we don't even know how we are going to, to turn around those kind of municipalities. And professionals who are there, who are enlisted into these municipalities, are not being given the space, to do what they were taught, what they were trained to do, because there is too much of interference from people who lack that knowledgeability. And even through your public audit amendments that expect of the Auditor General to enforce, rules such where you find a council having taken a wrong decision that money should be recouped from such councils, there is a lot of resistance. I think I can just stop there. What Brutus is saying is very, very, very true. Unfortunately, resistance is from within. Until such time citizens take it upon themselves that it is our country, we are the ones who are actually municipalities, that we must become very active and engaged. And people who want to lead us must have all what it takes. The skills, they must have educational background so that they know they are there to serve us, not to serve themselves. I think I can leave it there, Prof.
Thank you very much, TWB. Maybe the last hand for this round should be from Prof. Yakuvermak.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really grateful and privileged that I get the last word. I would just like to start. I know Margaret Thatcher, British Prime Minister, once said that the scarcest resource in a country is good public management. And that stuck with me. Now, as time progressed now, we've got a lot of new concepts introduced in subjects like public administration and development studies. And one of them are the social capital thing, the networking approach. And for me, I can't help to think that it's a very relevant subject. I think you quoted one author, Francis Fukuyama, and he's a leading guy in this network approach. But my question is really, how can you accommodate a network with people working together in networks? It's like electricity is flowing through a community or a municipal region. How can we use that to our privilege? Did you perhaps come across something like that? I would really like to know. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Professor Mark. Yes, let's go back to our guest speaker, Mr. Malada. We'll come back for like a few questions, and then we'll take those questions that are on the chat box, and then we'll round it up from there. Thank you very much, Mr. Malada.
Thank you very much. Let me start with the last question from Prof. Jaco Vermaak. My call to action suggests that we as citizens must act with agency. So I am challenging that there must be a broad coalition, not the coalition as we know it of political parties, but a coalition of academia, the civil society, the youth movement, the networks that you are talking about coming together and contributing to the development of our communities. It is only when the professionals, the engineers, volunteer their service, their hour in the municipality where they reside, that there could be a difference. But when we take our agency away from ourselves and we expect that there will be a messiah who will come into our communities to do what we consider should be done, then there's no messiah that is coming, I can guarantee you. So my call to action, it's also a challenge. That is why I quoted, and I'm not embarrassed, by the way, to quote 3 presidents of the United States. I quoted Adams in order to make a challenge that if we don't enter that space, we must know that nature does not appreciate a vacuum. Others will join in. And it is for that reason when the ethical and professional decided to leave the space, that the political space has been flooded by the uneducated and uncouth and unethical people. And then we complain on the sidelines. So I am challenging each one of us that we must remember that if you don't get yourself involved in politics, politics will involve you. Now, the sentiment by TWB, the former municipal manager, he didn't mention which municipality. You are just echoing what I said, and I appreciate that comment. I don't subscribe to a CA having to be subjected to report to a non-matriculant. And that is what has happened in our communities. How do you expect that this professional can exercise their trade with confidence and vigor when the person they need to report to cannot even understand the figures that they are presenting? It is demeaning to the very same professional. And this is the tragedy of our politics. And it's the politics of patronage that have made that possible. The municipality of Madibeng is a classic example. And there are many others that we can cite. We have many examples like 𝐾𝐶𝐬𝐬 leading a multi-billion state-owned enterprise. A teacher leading an aviation institution with no knowledge whatsoever of flying an aeroplane. She probably only flew a kite in her early days. But she was made a chairperson of a board of SAA. That's the late Dudumien. That's unfortunately the cult of mediocrity that persisted at our watch. And that's why I am linking this to the earlier comment that It is time for professionals, wherever you are, to take it upon yourself to go and serve. Matere Musa, is there nothing good done? I would wait. I appreciate the time that the university has given me to make the presentation on this lecture. I did not want to waste time. I'm not in the business of praising a fish for swimming. We need to demand excellence from government. And when they do good, they must not feel entitled that we must praise them. When they do wrong, we must stand up and demand that service. We are not going to be held accountable for not praising people for doing what they should do. And by the way, I did cite, you may not like the positive example that I cited, because I juxtaposed that with a negative one, that there was economic growth under Thabo Mbeki with a master's in economics from Sussex University. There was economic growth. Then a dunderhead takes over. A person with grade 3 takes over, and then what did you have? There was decline, persistent decline, and we saw state capture under his watch. What we saw was a cult of mediocrity at its best, and that is what led to the high rise of unemployment and low service delivery and disillusionment at the end. So, I repeat, I'm not in the business of praising a fish for swimming. Let me go to Makatu, man. This was my lecture, sir. And I frame it in the best possible way that I thought I should. And I frame it, this is how I structured my presentation. I provided a theory on which to rely on. And that the scholar that I am citing you don't like, it's your own problem. Fukuyama is an authority on this issue. He has written seminal books on political order and political decay. And he does not cite South African example only. He cites many examples across the world, and he has observed this phenomenon and its manifestations. It's hard luck. I've used him. And by the way, like I said, I'm not going to apologize for quoting Fukuyama, because for me, he provided a best theory that then explains for me the thesis that I was pursuing in my presentation. And I'm not straight-jacketed. By the way, if you look at the scholars that I've cited, there is Chinua Achebe. Is he not African? There is, I have quoted several people. You don't mention them. Frantz Fanon. Is he not an authority? He is an authority. What has he said? He has complained about brilliant opportunists who have been taking and feeding at the treasure trove. And he was lamenting about what happened in his own country. And those reflections should have been lessons for countries that gained their liberation last, such as South Africa. And we didn't listen. So, hard luck. But there is also another thing about trust deficit that I need to elaborate. So, the HSRC survey, you can find it on the internet. It speaks about the trust deficit not only in relation to voting, but in relation to state institutions that have been mandated by the Constitution to protect democracy, including the IEC, that there is a growing distrust by citizens over such an institution. And why has that happened? People no longer trust these institutions because of what happened, their experience. When they have their plight being ignored, when they make their complaints and they are, gathering dust in the speakers' offices. They won't have confidence in such institutions. And that is a phenomenon which, again, Fukuyama talks about, a trust deficit that grows. And it engenders this disillusionment that I've been talking about. And and education matters. And by the way, I'm pursuing my PhD, and the the topic of my PhD focuses exactly on this question. And I'm not thumb-sucking what I have been presenting to you. It's literature that I've been reading in preparation for my studies. And there is empirical evidence. Not only did the London School of Economics scholars like Besley and them conduct the survey, there are others who followed suit to check the very same issue. It's just that I could not cite all the scholars that are doing this. But there is, if you look at the changing world that we live in, how do you expect that a councillor with no metric whatsoever can understand the impact of global warming on delivery of services in KZN? We have global warming that is impacting, we're seeing its manifestations in floods. And what is it doing? It's breaking pipes. It's breaking bridges. It's the humid temperature that people are experiencing, the heat waves that we are experiencing. How does a councillor with no metric legislate, think of a bylaw that will help us mitigate the impact of global warming? I think that we need to ask ourselves serious questions. Yes, the issue of franchise, it's a thorny debate in South Africa, given the more than 300 years of colonialism and apartheid that actually subjugated blacks in general and Africans in particular. And as a result of that, we'll be very sensitive to issues of putting education as a criteria. But let us juxtapose that against the reality of the future in which we live. We are witnessing a war in Iran, Iraq today. I mean, Iran and Israel. It's a war that is fought not from the boot on the ground, but it is a war fought on AI and robotics. Now, you want to tell me that a person who is uneducated can think about legislating and regulating, creating laws in parliament or bylaws in a municipal council that would be as sophisticated as to understand the intricacies of these things that we're talking about? I don't subscribe to that. I don't think so. And I think we need to be realistic about preparing our country and our future more seriously. Prof. Muraka, or Shopola, I think, yes. Lenin, what is to be done, and the theories and so on. Interestingly, I cite Lenin in my own study, in my background chapter, where he talks about better few but better. Lenin advocated for a better few but better, something that Thabo Mbeki was talking about in the 2000 and something policy conference in Stellenbosch. The better few but better phenomenon is a concept that rests on the aspect of merit. And that merit, how will the issue is, even Lenin himself understood that the revolution will only be successful if there is a tiny elite of educated people leading that revolution and let the masses follow. That's why he spoke about better few but better. So we won't have the capacity to theorize as Lenin counsels us to do in addressing what what is to be done if we don't go to school. Correlations, voting, oh yes. Let me address this issue. Yes, there are exceptions where you have municipalities in Limpopo and some in Northwest, despite the decline service delivery, there is a spike in voter participation. I think, yes, there is no study without limitations. And I'm glad that I'm not making this presentation. I'm actually glad that I'm making this presentation in an academic setting. So I'm talking to people who understand research, that there will be limitations in a study, as well as statistical errors even in the analysis of the data itself. But we must understand that there will be exceptions. These waves of spikes, are they sustained over time? So that's why it is necessary to conduct longitudinal surveys where you can analyze data over a longer period of time. And I don't think that the spikes we are talking about that we have witnessed will be sustained in a long term. And if you understand how politics work, you've got the city centers as the places where things begin. So the trend has been set since 2016, where there is a change in political allegiances, where you now have the dominant political parties losing their support and then coalitions forming. It started in 2016. Where did it start? In the most dense populated areas in our country, in the city centers, in the metros. We saw Nelson Mandela, we saw Joburg, Tshwane changing in the way people have been voting. So this wave of change will take its route not as fast as it happens in the cities. In the rural areas, it will take longer. But I want to maintain that the spike we have witnessed may not be sustained over a long period of time. And it needs to be studied, I agree. It needs to be studied because there could be a variable that made that spike. It could be that in that area, there was one efficient, prolific public representative whom people believed and they thought that they can vote for that person. And as a result, there was that spike. Or it could be that indeed there have been service delivery and people witnessed the changes and they responded positively. So I don't know, I've not studied it, but I agree we need to study this closely. But what I have presented, I can defend it because it's a trend that you can check over time. So I'm checking data from 2000 to 2021. So I'm not focusing on 1 year in the presentation that I've made. So when I say this, there was a spike of 57% in voter participation, but it dipped. Why did it dip? You look at service delivery protests, which went up. So if I can ask the president of Convocation to flight the slide with the graphs, you will see that as the trajectory of civil society or community protests rise and unemployment rise, you see a decline in voter participation. It spiked at some point in 2011, but 2016 it started to go down, and 2021 even further. So I am analyzing trends here to say what do we read from it and what does it tell us. And I'm saying the reason for this trend is one thing, that people are disillusioned They are not happy with the service. And I explain this theoretically with 3 phenomena. One is political decay by Francis Fukuyama. 2 is the cult of mediocrity by Chinua Achebe. 3, it's brilliant opportunists who are changing the direction of institutions that are supposed to serve, but lining their own pockets, and that is Franz Fanon. And that is the theoretical base on which I stand. Thank you.
Thank you very much, our guest speaker, Mr. Brutus Malada. So I will just go through a few of the comments that have been made. The first one from Dr. Quincey-Nepal, saying that indeed is an incredible presentation. Thesis argued strongly and proven with evidence. Also that 𝐃𝐶, why do we still have to mobilize voters to vote? If we have 5 years to do the right thing, why do we spend so much money during election time if we've been doing the right thing all this time? And also, 𝐃𝐶𝐬𝐲𝐢𝐳, a very powerful presentation indeed. The issue of political decay is a topic that we can discuss basically because its vicinity is more closer to the voter. However, this thing of political interference runs straight from national. Mashudu Toro, outstanding presentation. But the question is, given the empirical evidence of intergenerational difference in political trust, to what extent do you believe young voters are genuinely persuaded by current municipal governance performance? And if they remain unconvinced, would you characterize their disengagement as a rational response to observed performance failures? Edward Gumede, as we're busy with this topic, I have been listening attentively. I did not hear anything about TVET colleges and universities, unless if I've missed something. What I want to know and understand from the presenter is, does our online voting system from the tertiary institutions encourage and enhance the students' participation to participate into our local and national elections? The reasons why I'm asking this is that I want us to reflect into the state of students who are participating or voting during students' election, because this is having a huge impact into our elections as a country. The comment by TWB, I think he got an opportunity to say what he wanted to say. Brian Baloy, they've done something good for them, not for the voters. Now petrol is increased, check the cars of the state on the road. The language there is not so. But yeah, so Mr. Mabala, the problem is how these professionals getting appointed, because they tend to serve politicians as opposed to communities and are now even ashamed. CAs and other professions are hired to hide corrupt activities of these entities. 𝐾𝐞𝐦𝐨𝐰, political deployment is a serious problem in this country. Kumbani BM, since there has been a decline in voter participation due to empty promises, political leaders have promised during the elections, campaigns, and never fulfilled their promises. How would be the best way to winning the hearts of the voters, such that we again experience the increase in voter participation? I think there are so many that the last one is from Chicago. It's a high time educated elites start involving themselves in politics or governance to try and restore government to be functional again. Yeah, I think you should only go for those. I don't see any other hand. So I think those comments were sufficient enough. You can just respond to those and then we'll round it off. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Prof. I think a majority of these comments are really comments that do not necessarily warrant a response. I can just make a sweeping statement to say that I think the time has come for people to speak and tell it like it is. In my own lingo, we need to be brutally honest. And I think it is us reserving our comments, our frank assessment of telling each other where we are wrong that has led to a culture of impunity. And by not speaking out, we have made those who have made it their trade to steal to think that they can get away with it. And as I observe politics, as I analyze politics, I see a new era that is beckoning. And I think this is an era of accountability. But for it to be sustained, it would need professionals, it would need ethical leaders to move away from this thought that politics is dirty. Politics can be clean if it is led by clean people. We can have politics about service, and I think we are getting there. If we are to implement the recommendations of these commissions, we should be able to resuscitate our country and build and rebuild it. The issue of disengagement, I asked the CEO, the Chief Electoral Officer of the IEC, Mr. 𝐶𝐤, about voter apathy, especially for the youth. And he says, just go through the Human Science Research Council's report, that the youth are not apathetic. They are asking themselves, where is the democratic dividend? So the whole 30 years have gone past. But as the youth today, they have no jobs. They are asking, where is the democratic dividend? And they are deciding that they are not going to vote because it is not helping them at all. But I am saying, and maybe this ties with a response I should have given to Prof on the issue of a constitutional crisis. I am saying that we live in a constitutional democracy which has provisions for elections, and we can use the vote as our weapon for redemption. And if we understand the power of the vote, we can do it. And hence the challenge that let's enter the fray and let's contribute wherever we are. So the constitutional crisis issue, I think questions have already been asked about whether the current constitution serves us well or not on many other issues, including land and so forth. I don't think that a constitution should be that sacred that it cannot be reviewed. But when we review it, we must review it with good intentions. Where there are challenges with our constitution, we must not be reviewing it for ulterior motives. We must be reviewing it for the good of the nation. And the constitution as we have it today does not place any criteria for a person to be elected in parliament, except that you must have a South African ID, you must not have a criminal record. Those are the only, prohibiting criteria that has been set. Yet we expect that public, officials must be vetted. We don't vet a president. We expect these professionals that they must register with the professional bodies. We don't demand any form of accountability on those that are elected. The question is, does it serve us to continue with such a constitutional framework? And if we think that it doesn't, then let that conversation ensue. And where a review is necessary, let it be done, if it serves the good of our country. I think I will end it there, and thank you very much, Chairperson and Facilitator, for the Q&A. Some of the comments, as I said, are complementing and agreeing with some of the arguments that we have made. And I did not come here to say what I'm presenting is the only truth. We may differ, and let 1,000 flowers bloom, and let 100 ideas contend.
Thank you very much, Mr. Malada. Just to round it off, just a comment. The main that you have said either is a lack of negative, consistent audit outcomes, either lack of service delivery, either maladministration, all these negative things that you have said. There are people behind those things. There are people who are responsible for lack of service delivery or negative audit outcomes or maladministration, many other anomalies that happens within our state. So, which then brings us to, do you think the level of public accountability is sufficient? Are people that are responsible for these anomalies being held to account? And what is it that should be done? Thank you.
I see, Prof. You're taking the privilege of the facilitator. Let me respond to to that. So, when you go through the Auditor General's report, one consistent complaint of the Auditor General is lack of consequence management, and there's been attempts to force municipalities to take action against officials that are caught with their hands in the cookie jar. And in some cases, in the metros, they've been establishing disciplinary boards, this and this. The problem is that there's been a well-orchestrated system of protection for comrades. So you have a disciplinary board that is established in a metro. A person is held in that to tick the box, and then he is exonerated. Now, when the Auditor General comes, says, what happened? They say, we have subjected the person to the disciplinary process, and we have ticked the box. Now, I think that is the problem. And we have been, instead of rewarding excellence, we have actually at local level, we have that system, and we also have it at national. So a person is found wanting in the executive as a minister. What do? We take them to parliament. So parliament is a dumping ground for discredited people. We expect that municipalities will do something different when National is doing exactly the opposite. A person who is found wanting is rewarded, will be made either you are removed as a minister, but you will be taken to parliament. We have got classical cases that we can cite, even recent cases like the former minister of higher education. She is removed because of the scandal on the sitters and placed in parliament because now she has got a problem that her lifestyle had risen as a minister. She can no longer afford that life. What do? Let's give her a deputy chief whip so that her salary can be justifiable. We are rewarding people that we should not be rewarding. And when that happens, it will have its form replicated at local level. So the guys at local see what national is doing. They replicate it. And it's a whole thing of political decay in our system. And this engenders disillusionment, and voters are voting with their feet, and they're deciding not to go to the polls. And unfortunately, that is what is happening. It's lack of consequence management, Prof. I mean, you can't explain that a municipality like Ekurhuleni has been consistently getting clean audits. But what is Madlanga Commission revealing today? It's staggering that that municipality has a record of clean audits, and yet this is the things that have been done. So they've been cooking the books to hide this corruption that has been happening, and using professional consultants in cahoots with the thugs that have been plundering the state. And fortunately, we've got the Madlanga Commission now. We can hope that there will be consequence for those that have been caught or those that have been found wanting. And if that happens, then it will sustain the argument that I'm making that we have entered an era of accountability. And as this era is building up, we must support it as professionals by entering the fray and offering our services and our expertise to save our municipalities and to save our politics. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Malada. What a thought-provoking discussion indeed that we've had. I hope it's going to be sustained even after this discussion outside there. We continue to talk about this so that we can find a better way going forward. Thank you very much. Back to you, Shonisani.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Prof. Mjezi. That was a sterling job in getting all the questions in, and that was a sterling job in getting all the questions in as well as the comments. Thank you so much for that, and of course, thank you to our guest speaker for a thought-provoking public lecture today. A topic indeed that's necessary and very practical at this time. Let us proceed by continuing with the program for today's public lecture. I think President of Convocation together with Convocation Executive, my task was to run this program from 1830 to 2030, and I think I can report with confidence that we are within time and we are soon to just close up right now. So the vote of thanks will be combined together with closure that will be rendered by Dr. 𝐃𝐞𝐦𝐧𝐤𝐢𝐳. Dr. Zaga, please come through and give us a vote of thanks together with closure.
Thank you so much, Program Director, Ms. Shoni Masuta, President of Convocation, Mr. Sylvester Mutadi, and members of the Executive Committee of Convocation, Deputy President of Convocation and Chairperson of Council, Mr. 𝐾𝐶𝐤𝐬, members of the University Council of Management, esteemed academics, Professor Mjezi, Univen alumni, students, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's both an honor and a privilege to express gratitude following such an insightful and inspiring public lecture by one of our own, Mr. Brutus Malada. So the participants' reflections confirm that your lecture sparked significant interest. Mr. Malada, we are deeply grateful for the time you have taken to return to your alma mater, the University of Venda, to share your knowledge, experiences, and wisdom with us. Your journey stands as a powerful testament to the caliber of graduates the University of Venda produces. Your words this evening have not only enriched our minds, but have also ignited a renewed sense of purpose, particularly among our students who look to leaders like yourself for inspiration and guidance. Your reflections have reminded us of the importance of resilience, innovation, and commitment to excellence, particularly in matters of service delivery, which would ultimately encourage broader participations. As an alumnus, your continued engagement with the University of Venda is highly valued, and it strengthens the bond between the University of Venda and its graduates. So allow me to also extend sincere appreciation to the program director again for steering this program with such professionalism, and to all speakers, the president of Venda Convocation, and participants who contributed to the success of this event. To the leadership of the University of Venda, thank you for your continued commitment to creating platforms that promote intellectual engagement and knowledge exchange. Events such as this are central to advancing our institution's academic mission. So to the organizing committee led by the Executive Committee of Convocation, your hard work behind the scenes has not gone unnoticed. So the seamless coordination of this lecture reflects your dedication and excellence. I wish we have speakers of Brutus Caliber for our successive public lectures. Professor 𝐾𝐿𝐴, I can't agree with you more that this is worth sustaining. So to all attendees, thank you for your presence and active participation. Your engagement is what gives meaning to gatherings of this nature. And in conclusion, Mr. Malada, we once again thank you for an exceptional lecture. We are proud to call you one of our own, and we look forward to continued collaboration and engagement in the future. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in expressing our heartfelt appreciation to Mr. Brutus Malada. Program Director, I thank you.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you so much to everyone that's joined us. The program is coming to an official closing. Dr. Zada, happy birthday to you. I think that was one of the announcements that we were supposed to just pass through from the very side. I hope you had an amazing day, and I think this is on behalf of all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, this program is officially concluded. Thank you so much. Goodbye. Good night. Enjoy.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations, boy.
You, I'm burning.
You left no crumbs.